Good morning, children. So before we proceed our new lesson, let's pray first. So who can lead the prayer? Okay, Miss Catherine, you can lead the prayer. Okay, class, please sit down. Thank you, Miss Catherine. So how are you today? It's good to hear that. So let's recap our previous lesson. So who can tell me about our previous lesson yesterday? So, okay, Mr. Daniel, can you tell me about our previous lesson yesterday? So, very good. Our previous lesson was all about assessing learning in social studies. So, did you gain a knowledge about this lesson? Okay, let's see. So, what are the characteristics of 21st century assessment? Any other class? Wow, very good. So, the characteristics of 21st century assessment in social studies are responsive, integrated, informative, flexible, technically sound, communicated, and systematic. So, and now, let's focus on our new lesson for today, entitled Traditional and Authentic Assessment in Social Studies. And we are going to distinguish the different types of traditional and authentic assessment in social studies, determine the appropriate assessment type to use in classroom environment, learn to identify and plan which is assessment and better, and know the purpose of assessment. So, are you ready, class, for our new lesson? Very good. And now, let me show to you these pictures first. So, what is your observation about these pictures? Very good. You're all right. These are kind of an assessment. So this is role playing, hands-on experiment, fill in the blanks test, multiple choice test, and recitation. So are you familiar with this? Good. But do you know what kind of assessment are these? And because you don't know yet, our lesson for today is all about of an assessment in social studies. But before we proceed to my discussion or our discussion, let me borrow your ear and attentions, because afterwards I will give to you an activities for you to answer. So our discussion for today is all about the two types of assessment in social studies, which is traditional assessment and authentic assessment. And also, I will discuss to you about the purposes of traditional assessment, strength and limitations of traditional assessment, cardinal rules of implementing and planning authentic assessments, strength and limitation of authentic assessment, and which assessment is better. So, as a students, we observe different assessment techniques that our teachers done or give to us. And as a future teachers, we need to practice of choosing our own assessment and helps to us to evaluate our future students. Ano nga ba ang assessment? So, based on the information I've got, assessment is a key component of learning because it helps students learn. Through this assessment, teachers are able to see the result if their students are really understand the given course material they've taught or not. There are two types of assessment in social studies. These are traditional assessment and authentic assessment. And this said assessments, dito iikot ang lesson natin ngayon. And we are going to distinguish the different types of traditional and authentic assessment in social studies. And we need to know and understand the better and appropriate assessment to use in our classroom environment. Now, let's focus on traditional assessment. So, as a students, we are already familiar about paper and pencil test, and this is an example of traditional assessment, which is used to determine the students' learning outcomes. Traditional assessment refers to the tools such as multiple choice test, true or false, fill in the blanks, and matching types, and so many more. These assessments are easy to grade, but only test isolated application, facts, and memorize data at lower level thinking skills. Considered as an inauthentic and indirect approach in measuring students' learning outcome. So what does it mean? So it means that indirect assessment is one that asks a student to self-report, such as asking them if they believe and they know the material. And an authentic assessment in that same course would be to ask a student to take a multiple choice test. So we already discussed the meaning and example of traditional assessment. And now let's talk about the purpose of traditional assessment. There are three purposes of traditional assessment. Number one is evaluate learners. Number two is rank learners, and number three is feedback of evaluation results. One is evaluate learners. Traditional assessment evaluates learning and retaining capacity of a child. It analyzes how much of the provided material or syllabus has been acquired by the students. It also helps educators or teachers to compare the performances of different students. It is easy to score. Through this assessment, teachers can evaluate students or learners more quickly and easy. Number two is rank learners. Traditional assessment can also rank learners. And because of the assessment papers of the students that the teacher collect, the teachers can rank students and so have a high and low understanding about the subject they teach. Traditional assessment can gain information that is not required more preparations unlike to authentic assessment. Another purpose of traditional assessment is the feedback of evaluation results. So after the teacher in evaluation process, she or he need to report the result of evaluation that's seen in report card of the students, and the teacher will show or present the said report card to those parents of students during the parent-teacher conference, and we already familiar with that, right? Next is the strengths of traditional assessment. Number one is reliability, validity, and easy to administer and check. This is the main highlight of traditional assessment, and the teacher creates different types of tests to his or her students that is required and based on what curriculum guide dictate. The ability of assessment tool is the extent to which it measures learning consistently. Number two is validity. So traditional assessment becomes valid only when it answers the following question. What is to be measured and how consistently it is measured? An assessment is valid when it measures the content was taught, and when it reflects the content and skills you emphasize when teaching the course. Three is easy to administer and check. So we can notice that during our test, paper and pencil test, that one is an example of traditional assessment, is easily administer and check. Sometimes teachers choose his or her students to check their test papers or examination papers by exchanging their papers, and we already familiar with that. Traditional assessment doesn't require more time and effort just to check the grades of the students, because it focuses only on a specific learning outcomes. Less time, easier to prepare, and easy to administer. Next is the limitations of traditional assessment. And there are two limitations of traditional assessment. Number one is individualist, and number two is competition. One, individualist. Traditional assessment is designed to measure learning on an individual basis. We find their difficulties during or especially during examination periods or weekly quizzes because it is an individual task that the student or that the students should do. So students will study their lesson just for them to answer the assessment that the teacher give to them. But now, as we can see, our generation is more on collaborating activities because we adopt the 21st century skills. Is competition. So even we adopt the 21st century skills, which is to aim and promote the collaboration among learners, still traditional assessment is limited only to individual learners which develop the competition among learners. I hope that you gain some informations and you understand my discussion, and the next discussants will discuss to you the or about the authentic assessment in social studies and which assessment is better. And so I just want you to hear and understand about our discussions because after that we will have an activity. So any question, class? Do you really understand my discussions? Very good. And now you will be grouped into two groups, and each group will explain the pictures that I will give them. That set pictures are based on our discussion earlier, which is the traditional and authentic assessment in social studies. So to form groupings, let's count. Let's count in. So okay, count. 1, 2, 1, 2. So this is for group 1 and this is for group 2. So this is for you, group 1, and this is for you, group 2. So let's give a round of applause for group 1 and also for group 2 for a great job. And now I will ask you, class, to give the summary of our lesson. So class, what is our discussion is all about? Yes, Mr. Miguel, can you tell me or tell us about our discussion earlier? So yes, our discussion is all about traditional and authentic assessment in social studies. Okay, Miguel, please sit down. And second question, talking about traditional assessment, it refers to the tools such as, yes, Jimin? Very good. It refers to the tools such as true or false, matching type, multiple choice test, fill in the blanks, and so many more. So, thank you, Jimin. Can you please sit down? So, the third question is, what are the types of authentic assessment? Yes, Jungkook, can you tell us about the different types of authentic assessment? And yes, very good, Jungkook. Can you please sit down? So the different types of authentic assessment is portfolio assessment, performance test, journal, role plays, experiment, projects, hands-on experiment, teacher-created tests, demonstrations, and so many more. And because you're doing so well, class, with the same group, I will let you to think or decide what is assessment or what is a type of assessment you like the most, and you will explain it in the class. And now let's give a round of applause again to group 1 and also for group 2 for make an effort and for a good job. Okay, class, get one whole sheet of paper and answer these following questions. So, okay, class, direction. Answer the following question below in a one whole sheet of paper. So, number 1, what are the different types of traditional and authentic assessment in social studies? Number 2, as a student, what is the best type of assessment used in a classroom that will help you to become an effective learner? And after that, explain your answer. And number 3, as a future teacher, how are you going to assess the students through the help of what kinds or what type of assessment? And number 4, what is the purpose of assessment strategy in teaching and learning process? And last, after you finish to answer these following questions and after you pass your papers, then you can go and have a great weekend. Thank you.